It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. It's Monday. Gary, what's happening?
Well, I thought it was really interesting. I saw it over the weekend. Now, we had the rain and everything else. Our golf tournament was rained out because of it. But on Saturday, my city put out a notice that all Earth Day celebrations were canceled due to weather. So the Earth Day celebrations were canceled because of Earth.
Yeah. We're not going to be able to celebrate Mother Nature because of Mother Nature.
And when I said that to somebody the other day, I felt like Norm Macdonald. I go, that's a Norm Macdonald joke.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
And Earth Day celebrations canceled because of the Earth.
Yeah. It's, the USPS, wind, sleet, snow, Armageddon. We'll get your mail there eventually. And with the Earth Day, folks, I'm sorry, what? There's rain? No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. No. But it's the Earth. Don't you think people should, care about the Earth? No. But in the rain, no. Not in the rain. You don't care about the Earth in the rain.
You weren't ready? You weren't ready with indoor activities?
It's just, to me.
It's the Earth.
Yeah, it's like, here's your opportunity. See what Mother Nature can do if we don't take care of the Earth. It can rain. Yeah, but rain's beneficial. But it's also cold.
Not too much.
It's like
flash floods.
Oh, my gosh. Man,
Yep.
It was crazy. We were actually traveling on Saturday. It was pretty heavy north and west of here, especially. We saw several vehicles that must have hydroplaned, and they came off of the highway, must have been doing highway speed in the rain, and I mean heavy, heavy rain. And they were in this median, so they slid off the highway and into the grass. And I mean 7 or 8 in different areas, not in one. It was probably within a 2 to 3 mile span. I'm like, what in the world happened here? Now, roads can get slick if hasn't been any rain like in a long time because the oil washes to the surface from the water. But this was something different. This apparently was hydroplaning, and it was crazy how many vehicles hydroplaned off the road onto the median and slid a significant way into the grass. And I thought, man, slow down, people. Take your time.
Well, number one, I could tell when I got back because we had the party on Friday night. The party went on. It was a Make-A-Wish golf tournament. And so when I got back home, I couldn't believe how high the pool was.
Mm-hmm.
I probably got close to 3 inches of rain.
Yeah.
Somewhere between 2 and 3
Mm-hmm.
inches. It was just pretty amazing. Oh, and very quickly again, the Ducks defeated me this year.
Yeah, they did.
I went out when it was raining, when I was gone just that one day.
Mm-hmm.
The nest right there next to my house.
All right.
8 duck eggs in there. And I
Yeah.
checked on the mother duck. And, I mean, hey, I'm a Boy Scout. I got the Conservation and Natural Resources merit badge.
Yeah.
So it's like even if it wasn't federal law, because we're surrounded by Army Corps of Engineers property, I can't move the eggs by federal law.
Even as a carnivore?
Not even as a carnivore. No, I couldn't.
Okay.
But I wouldn't anyway. But I checked on the mother duck. The mother duck was sitting on the eggs when I left the house.
Yeah.
And she seems to be pretty comfortable. I went out there a lot, so she's comfortable with me out there. She's not, I think, realizes there's no harm for me. But the the party was great. I mean, the for the Make-A-Wish tournament that I was in, Independent Bob was there. I told you that I hadn't talked to him about politics in a while.
Mm-hmm.
So the highlight, all right, now I have to do this in the Independent Bob style. Okay, his hands really weren't flying all over the place like they used to. But he was just like, what? I can't understand it. How can the LGBTQ be supporting Hamas? They'd kill them in a second. I mean, what is wrong with these people?
That sounds just like him.
That was Independent Bob. It's like, I just can't. And I'm really trying to do the impression of him. It's just the dumbest thing. What is in these people's minds? I mean, where is where is the instinct for self-preservation? I mean, how can they possibly? It was great.
Yeah,
he was great.
Yeah, it's pretty much. Everybody I run into right now is asking me the same thing. It's what is wrong with people? And it really ramped up after October 7th. I mean, it's the radicalism. And I've had, I don't know how many people text me, call me, approach me that I know that look at this and say, none of this makes any sense. What in the world is going on? And my only answer is, you have to ask the radicals. I don't know. I have no idea. I have no idea.
The DNC is going to be a nightmare. You've been saying, you said this since in day one when they said Chicago. It's like, it's going to be a nightmare. It's going to be a nightmare.
Well, and typically, back in the day, they could hold off the radicals. They kept them down the street a few blocks away. Remember back in 2016 when the whole thing fell out with the DNC and Hillary, not the Russian hoax thing, the other thing with the DNC and Hillary campaign, where we learned through the DNC emails that they basically were just setting Bernie up to fail. Let him go out west, in the western states. He's going to do okay. Let him kind of have his moment, but we're going to usher in Hillary as the nominee. And the Bernie people showed up. Now, they're not the types of many of them are radical. I don't know how many Bernie supporters are part of the radicals right now, but it wasn't anything like what we're going to see, I'm convinced, this summer at the DNC. They showed up. They were angry for about, a couple hours the first day of the DNC that year. They were angry. And the Democratic Party has been successful at basically trying to appease protesters and the radicals within their group for forever. But that is over because the radicals now lead their group. The radicals will not be ignored, to quote Glenn Close. And that's going to be a big problem for them because these aren't the people just holding protest signs anymore. They are an active part of the party. They are the ones leading the effort further in that direction. And I can't tell you. I told you in the pre-show meeting, I think I've understated it even for myself as to how radical the DNC is going to be in Chicago. I can't imagine. I can't imagine. And I don't know which direction it goes. Because the primetime speeches are all designed to get, the most attention. You're going to feature people. When was Obama spoke at the 2004 DNC?
Yeah.
So that kind of thing, you kind of highlight your rising stars, but you have these prominent people in the primetime speeches. I was going to say televised. Is somebody streaming, by the way? Is it any of the streaming services announced they're going to show the DNC?
ESPN Plus?
Right. Right. And Stephen A. Smith is going to be protesting all of them. This is how bizarre it's gotten.
Well, but there is one constant. When I saw that Susan Sarandon showed up at Columbia University and is pro-terrorist and and anti-Semitic and pro a Jewish genocide. It's really good to see that she's taking a strong stand.
Yeah, she's a little late in the game, but it's taken several months, but at least we heard from her, right? I mean, she is getting older, so she's slowing down. But here's the by the way, I didn't say she's past her prime. If you're thinking that, that's on you. So I didn't say it. It would be probably wrong to say it. And I didn't say that Susan Sarandon is past her prime. You were thinking that's on you. It would be wrong to say it. Probably. So I don't know where. I'm guessing. So I don't know, again, who you bring up, because the thing, too, is the media coverage, right? MSNBC. By the way, also, what's going on with Michael Avenatti? Okay.
We're just going to be jumping from topic to topic because we didn't talk about this, but our minds are the exact same. It's like there's so much crap being thrown at us this week, and then you see the Avenatti thing, and it's just like, no, it's I'm not doing drugs.
Well, because I'm thinking, that line of thought was, MSNBC and all the liberal media will be covering, of course, the DNC, and they were part of making Michael Avenatti the darling back when he was against Trump. The word got out, if you didn't hear, that he had been talking to the Trump defense team in this effort for him to possibly testify in favor of Trump. I don't know what that looks like. I have no idea what that looks. I'm like, but what? And so now I'm thinking you've got the possibility of Michael Avenatti, I guess by Zoom from jail, and Stephen A. Smith appearing at the DNC and, with the media, having them to comment, and they're both wearing MAGA hats. It's just bizarre how things are just turning out, and and I think it's indicative of a couple of things. The stuff we've talked about, with Matt Taibbi and Barry Weiss and a number of prominent former liberals. And also current liberals, as far as I know, Michael Rappaport has not denounced himself as a liberal, although he's talking a lot more favorable in terms of Trump. And he has not definitely said he is not going to support the Democratic Party, or he's not going to support Biden. But, you see that, and you see everybody starting this turn in reconsidering things. Bill Maher and all of the other liberals, where they talk more and more favorably, maybe not full-on endorsement style comments, but certainly they are talking more favorably for, I would say, I guess, it would favor the Republican Party. It would favor Trump. It's not what you're seeing, what you're typically seeing, in the April before a November presidential election. It's just not from the left. It's going to be interesting to see how many of them are looking at this. I really am curious as to what's going on with Stephen A. Smith and what in the world Michael Avenatti could offer the defense team for Trump. But I'm more curious to see what the voting base for the Democratic Party, number one, if they turn out, and number two, what they do on November 5th. I think that's going to be I have no idea what it looks like. And we don't make predictions. But the polls are, kind of all over the place. You and I talked about the poll in the pre-show meeting, the one poll that shows that RFK Jr. pulls now, in this one NBC News poll, he pulls from Trump and gives the advantage to Biden by 2 points. But it also in this poll shows that RFK Jr. would get 13. Yeah, I don't buy that he's going to get 13.
And Stein would get what?
3?
3 or 4,
yeah,
and then
Cornel West gets 2.
2. Yeah,
I don't buy that at all.
You know, you look at the other stuff in the poll on the issues, and that's something to talk about. Now these pollsters are talking about the issues and putting the labels of which candidate is for them.
Right.
And Trump still leads.
Right.
That's huge.
Yeah.
And it did show that Trump is viewed as better. I didn't buy that either. When I saw that, because if it's a head-to-head, Trump wins.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, if it's everybody in there, Trump loses by 2, and Kennedy hurts Trump. I don't buy that.
I don't buy that.
I don't buy it. And I don't buy that. And
at all.
I'm with you, especially after the polls came out last week. A number of polls came out that showed a drastic drop in the popularity of Kennedy, where you're talking less than 5% in every poll, and all of a sudden he's at 13, and still Stein and Cornel West pulling like 5 percentage points, which makes it close to 18 to 20%.
Right.
Would not vote for Biden or Trump. I don't buy it.
I don't buy that. I don't buy that.
I don't buy it.
I don't buy that. If you show me more movement in polls, other pollsters that move in that direction, maybe we can have a conversation, but you got to show me that first. I don't buy it.
We got a great show ahead. 866-90 Red Eye.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Cold weather takes a toll on trucks. As warmer weather rolls in, it's time to assess the impact winter has had on your vehicle to help avoid downtime and keep your rig rolling through to next winter. When completing your spring maintenance check, don't overlook your windshield wipers. Extreme temperatures, snow, and ice can tear windshield wipers apart. Check on yours now to prepare for spring showers and avoid squinting through streaks. A general rule of thumb is to replace your wiper blades every 6 months. But if your inspection uncovers streaking, worn rubber, or damaged wiper frames, you may want to purchase a new set sooner.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You did hear that Bill Maher said that the drag queen story hour is like behavior that borders on abuse, and that DeSantis was right about Disney.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, he's saying some correct things, but I don't know how he gets over his almost death, his almost murder comment on abortion last week. But again, I thought that would create a huge outcry. Nothing. Absolutely. Nobody in the left talked about that at all.
No, they didn't.
Which is interesting, because you just wonder then, do the majority of Democrats then believe in Congress that abortion is murder, but they're okay with it?
Right.
Is that where the stand is? Because nobody came out and said, it's not murder. It's not a child until it comes out of the womb. Nobody said that.
Well, I mean, you have these celebrities that have come about, female celebrities that have come about, and they've implied that, it was a good thing that I had an abortion, that I didn't have children because it would have gotten in the way of my career, and saying all these things. And the left applauded all of that. So it does make sense that someone says, well, okay, let's take a look at it. Yeah, it's sort of murder, and we're okay with that.
Almost murder.
What? We don't have to overpopulate the world. And the left, by the way, is okay with that. In a world where the radicals are saying what they're saying now, where they proudly promote their anti-Semitism, Bill Maher's comments probably seem tame.
For listeners not now, then now, depending on when now is. Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. You know, we addressed the Ukraine bill the other day, and you know, talked about what should happen, and I think we both agree that if you're talking about what should be funded by the federal government, it should be, you need to blunt what Putin and Russia is doing, just like you need to do with China, North Korea, few other countries also out there. But the fact is, as we have stated, there isn't anybody in this whole situation that's 100% right.
No.
And because one of the things is, and you can't get past it when it comes to Ukraine or really anything that's going on right now, is that you can't trust this administration. And I think that the Republicans, because of the infighting that's going on, that is a message that didn't lead in this debate that is going on. Mm-hmm. So I understand when people look at this and say, well, if we're not going to do the border, how can we do this? And I believe that's probably if you get to because there's two things. There's a substance of what we should be doing, but you don't know what to do because you can't trust this administration, because they will pathologically lie to you. You can't trust that the money that's being used won't end up being wasted significantly. There is no confidence in that, and that's part of the problem that you have with the Republican Party that is saying, the 14 members of the Republican Party that said no to this, and then the screaming that Johnson has to go and all that. Mm-hmm. And so you can look at this and go, well, this thing, it could come back 3 years from now and say, well, out of the $60 billion that went to Ukraine, $30 billion of it was just wasted and ended up as part of the corruption that exists in the Ukrainian government.
Right.
That doesn't take away from the fact that you have to blunt Putin and Russia.
Right.
And It was interesting because they're like, well, no, conservatives don't want any foreign aid going, for military aid to our allies. You're not a conservative if that's your viewpoint.
Right.
Sorry, you're not.
Right.
The absolute viewpoints that existed, or it seems to be debated in this, left no room to say, well, actually, we should be doing both. Mm. We should be securing the border without question, and we should be providing military aid to our allies, and we need to be blunting on a consistent basis what's going on in Russia, China, North Korea, and more. Now, you and I have stated one of the problems is here, we don't have – one of the things that happened was, well, Johnson changed his mind when he got the intelligence. Well, the immediate response is you can't trust the intelligence agencies.
Right. Because
we saw what happened.
Right.
And it's like, that's the problem that you have. And by the way, it's a winning political argument. Mm-hmm. The argument when you see the Democrats waving the Ukraine flag inside there, when you'll never see them, wave the American flag for example, we're going to close. Imagine this: we're going to close the border, and then they're all waving American flags.
Right.
That's not going to happen. The optics of it was horrible over the weekend.
Oh man.
So politically, it was bad. Now, the interesting thing politically, as you and I both said, and we were both waiting for it over the weekend, was for Trump to come out and go, I don't believe in this whatsoever. Johnson is wrong. He didn't do that.
Haven't seen that yet.
Nope. In fact, as of last week, when you were saying he was in support of Speaker Johnson,
right,
and did not come out, everything that he said was indicative of he supported aid going to Ukraine against Russia,
right,
which politically, as we know, a lot of those 14 that voted against it, what did you say last week? I mean, they do backflips on a consistent basis to try to get Trump approval.
Well, yeah, everybody's working hard to be a part of, I guess, to prove that they support Trump more than the next guy, that they're closer to Trump's values than the next guy or gal, and that seems to be the effort. And time again, that comes back at him. You know, you look at the effort to push Kevin McCarthy out, and that was the problem. You know, that everybody thought, okay, well, this is going to go great, and then all of a sudden Trump's saying, no, I don't think that's a good move. And that's the political reality of where you are heading into the summer, which is going to be about as active as you can get in terms of ads being placed, the campaigning, the convention, and everything else, and setting up for the fall. We don't think that there's going to be debates in the fall, so the debates are going to happen, you know, at rallies, in the media, on social media. That's where the debates are going to happen, and it really won't. I tend to believe it's not going to be so much debate between the left and the right as it will be right now between the right and the right.
And the well, it depends. I don't know how much fighting there's going to be by the time you get to the DNC about the insanity of what the DNC stands for, and where the campaign stands for in mainstream. Well, I don't know if there's a mainstream Democrat. Those Democrats that wish to pretend that they're mainstream.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it is, it's blowing up. I mean, the White House and we'll get into the whole Columbia thing, but understand the insanity of what's going on. Who said it? It was Nate Silver. You see the Nate Silver comment on Twitter over the weekend, X, excuse me, where he came out and said that there is no advantage to going to any Ivy League college. You're flushing your money down the toilet. If you want the prestige, fine, but you get no better education. As we've always stated,
right?
You get no better education going to any of these Ivy League schools than you do any public college.
You know, and I would say that with a number of employees, I don't even know if it's I can't quantify how many, but I would believe it stands to reason that with more and more employees, employers, they look at that and say, well, yeah, okay, what am I getting into in here if I invest in this person as an asset to my company, if I hire them on? Am I hiring on someone who is of that radical mindset? Because that's not what I'm looking to fold into the culture here in my business, in my office. And I think that's going to be an impact going forward. Again, I have no idea to what extent, but certainly there are employers out there right now that are looking at that and taking a second look.
You know how we know that? Because we would.
I know I would.
And
I need to know how that person thinks, because that critical thinking is imperative in any business. It doesn't matter whether you're an engineer. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the sector is. I have to know that you can figure problems out, that you can put that critical thinking to work to solve those issues at every level. It doesn't matter what I hire you to do. That's what I'm looking for, is somebody who can think. And if you're one of these radicals, you're not going to work for me. You're going to work for you and your cause at every turn. And I don't need that as a part of the culture of my business.
Well, also in the private sector, you and I've talked about this many times before. The private sector, you can't make mistakes like you do in the public sector.
Right.
You can't be, when you look at this administration and everything that they have done on all the major issues actually hurts Americans. It doesn't help. They cause the problem, as we've stated before, and we'll do it again today. Probably every day we'll say this all the way up to the election. Republicans, where are you? Because your motto should be, the Democrats and the Biden administration can't and won't fix all the problems that we face today. And if you want to line them out and go, the border, foreign policy, everything else, because they cause the problem.
Right.
They can't and won't solve the problems because they caused the problems. And across the board, that's what you see. And I hope they eventually jump on that, because it's very easy and really not debatable.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And you see the panic. You saw Hillary out there that, Trump would kill his opponents. And I mean, they're just, and I thought to myself, I go, well, they've got to get beyond, you've done Hitler. You've done Hitler and Mussolini.
Yeah.
Where do you go from this?
He's going to murder you.
Okay, he's going to be murdering the opposition then.
Right.
Then you go directly, okay, let's go beyond Hitler. Let's go beyond we really can't be strong on Trump committing genocide when our party is pro-Jewish genocide.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough. So what are we going to do? Okay, Trump's going to kill his opposition.
Right. Coming from the person who set it up so that the entire power of the entire intel community would come down on, without justification, Trump. She's again, it's laughable. Anything from her, and to be, for anyone to take it seriously is ludicrous.
But I think coming out of this whole Ukraine thing politically, for the Republican Party is going to be interesting, because where does Trump stand on it?
Right.
Trump has seemed to stand all last week with Johnson.
Mm-hmm. At least he didn't oppose Johnson. I mean, it's hard to know. I mean, because you and I have asked the question, okay, what does he think on a number of things? The economy, how does he think an economy works? What works, what doesn't? And we've talked about that, especially in terms of tariffs. But in this case, the question then is, all right, what are your positions? Look, we know his position on the border, right? The question then would be, all right, let's get into the whole FISA thing, and what protections should there be? What for American citizens, and the whole Fourth Amendment issue that's been brought up surrounding all of that.
Well, when you look at it right here, as he said, when he was with Johnson and when he appeared with them, was it April 12th, April 13th? We're looking at it right now. We're talking about it. We're thinking about making it in the form of a loan instead of a gift. We keep handing out gifts of billions and billions of dollars, and we'll take a look at it. But much more importantly to me is the fact that Europe has to step up, and they have to give money. They have to equalize. If they don't equalize, I'm very upset about it, because they're affected much more than we are by it. Now, the point is him coming out with that. It's still aid, whether it's a loan or whatever.
Yeah, right.
It's still aid, and there's no guarantee when you loan a country like this who's at war, if they're defeated, you're not getting the money back.
Right.
So it was a way to temper it, but it was still, he was pro-aid to Ukraine.
Right.
And saying we should give a loan, but they're much more affected by it. But the purpose of what they're doing is correct, according to Trump. That disagrees with everybody. Well, not everybody, but a significant portion, the MTGs that have fallen over to do everything to say, I'm more MAGA than you.
Right.
Gates did the same thing with McCarthy.
Yep.
I'm doing this because of MAGA. And he's like, but Trump isn't behind you on this. He doesn't want McCarthy gone.
The day that the vote came down, you had a reporter ask him, have you been speaking with the former president, recently? Yes, we spoke just a couple of days ago. Are you aware that just moments ago he said this wasn't a good thing, a good move to oust Kevin McCarthy? Well, no, I didn't see that. And so Matt Gaetz, if you're trying to buy Trump street cred in that moment, he didn't get it. And by the way, right after all that fell out, I won't say that Matt Gaetz's tone changed, but he was a lot quieter.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up following the top of the hour, so much to talk about. Bill Maher, Drag Queen Story Hour is like behavior that borders on abuse. DeSantis was right about Disney. That's that headline from Breitbart. We'll get to the protest at Columbia.
Yeah.
Really incredible. I mean, but again, as we've always stated, people say, well, the president of Colombia, after her testimony last week,
you're right,
should arrest all these people. I'm like, yeah, but we get to hear what they think every single day. We get to hear as a pound, and this is a huge problem for the Democratic Party, that because this is directly where it's coming from. They own this, and Biden trying to ride that tightrope of criticizing Israel and at the same time supporting Israel, supporting Israel for more funding for their defense, and at the same time ensuring that Iran is funded so their proxies can attack Israel. It's just, it's pure insanity.
Well, it is, and I'm with you. It's important that we hear from these radicals and we know where they are. And we know what positions that they hold. We know what influence they have. It's important at every single turn because the fire is just getting bigger within the Democratic Party, and it's the radical left that's building that fire.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wow, Terry Anderson died.
Yeah.
Terry Anderson, the Associated Press correspondent who became one of America's longest held hostages when he was taken from a street in Lebanon back in 1985 and held for nearly 7 years. He died of complications from recent heart surgery. Remember, he won a lawsuit against Iran and was able to get, some of the frozen assets, some of the money. After returning to the United States, he did a bunch of different things, gave public speeches, taught journalism at several universities, and at various times operated a blues bar, Cajun restaurant, horse ranch, and gourmet restaurant. He also struggled with post-traumatic stress disorder, won millions of dollars in frozen Iranian assets after a federal court concluded that Iran played a role in his capture, then lost most of it to bad investments. He filed bankruptcy in 2009. He was working at the University of Florida, settled in a small horse farm in rural northern Virginia. So there you go. As soon as I saw it, now, when he was kidnapped originally, was in 85. By 86, 87 is when I became station manager of a radio station in Niagara Falls outside of Buffalo, and it was huge news because he was from Batavia. So when he was released, it was a huge local story.
Right.
But he went through hell.
Yeah.
Imagine 7 years of your life as a hostage.
No. In a foreign country. I mean, that kind of that doesn't even register in my brain. How bad that must have been. Yet, when he came home, he was obviously all smiles when he was released.
Oh, yeah.
And, it was, his face was everywhere, during that release. But the coverage of it, if you think about it, it was different. Part of that was the fact that, he was Associated Press and the media was going to cover, his capture, his captivity. But it was, the moment I heard of his passing, his face is just ever present, just kind of, if you were around during that time.
There's a picture when looks like he's on the tarmac, when he's coming off the plane that everybody remembers from him.
Right, yeah.
But, it was, I just can't imagine going through. And it was big news too because it happened in '85. And remember, still people at that point were still thinking of the entire Iran hostage situation,
Right.
And they knew that Iran was involved in it, and
Right.
so. But it was such a long time that he was held hostage.
Right.
But yeah, so
Yeah.
guess that does relate to everything going on at Columbia. As I said, look, I wish these things didn't happen, but if they happen as they are right now, I wish that people weren't anti-Semitic. Wish that people in the United States weren't pro-terrorism.
Right.
But they are.
Yeah.
And so part of the First Amendment is hearing now they have no First Amendment to trespass and do what they're doing on, Columbia University. But you get to hear over and over again, you get to hear how radical they are, and everybody is covering it. And then the Columbia University president, who last week, testified before Congress and didn't come off too well, then going back there and the fact, not going after them immediately. And it's just, you got the rabbi coming out from Columbia and saying Jews aren't safe on campus.
Mm-hmm.
Understand how radical liberalism is in the United States. I think, who was it that was talking about, was it Jason Whitlock? And who was talking about Bill Maher, saying, he goes, well, basically, I don't trust he's coming out and he's rejecting a lot of these things. For example, I noticed yesterday when from paying attention to what Bill Maher was saying on Friday, that he was saying liberalism. This isn't liberalism. This isn't liberalism. Yeah, it is.
Oh, yeah.
That's what liberalism has become.
Yep. Oh,
he doesn't want to associate with it, but that's what liberalism has become.
Yep.
And I don't remember him when DeSantis, because he was backing DeSantis, saying DeSantis was right against Disney. I don't remember him saying that when the controversy was going on.
No, I don't remember him. He was one of those that said, look, this DeSantis guy is a different, is different. He reads.
He reads, right.
But specifically the back and forth between DeSantis and Disney, I don't remember him saying what he said over the weekend about DeSantis.
Wasn't the reading on COVID?
I think it was. I think it was
on
because
COVID,
it was about that whole thing about, shutting down the state or opening the state too soon, or and things like that, and how DeSantis was handling it in Florida, and that was that was kind of the beginning of conservatives had already, of course, taken note of DeSantis, but the media was really starting to make note of DeSantis, and at every turn they're trying to go after him. But for him to say, what he said about DeSantis and Disney over the weekend, it's you are acknowledging what we have said, essentially. Bill Maher is acknowledging what we have said. He didn't bring up, the parents, but we've said, look, this wasn't between. Disney thought they were taking on a Republican governor. They weren't. They were taking on the parents, and they don't see that. The far left, they don't understand. They think they're taking on the Republican Party. They think they're taking on Trump, but they're taking on millions and millions and millions of Americans, including some that vote Democrat. I'm not saying it's going to change how those people vote, but they don't see where the battle line is actually drawn. They don't see what the playing field is. They're so consumed in their hatred of Trump or their hatred of Republicans that they don't understand that the issues for the people, all people concerned, get down to the actual people, the rank and file. And I think this is what the left misses over and over again. This is what the left in the media misses over and over again. They don't get it. They're blinded for their hatred, by their hatred for Trump or by their hatred for the right. And they don't understand that the issues are still the issues with the American people. You and I talk about how everybody gets caught up in the political back and forth and And even in the Republican Party, especially in the House, you have a number of players that come off as someone trying to get themselves a really good day on social media. They're trying to get that attention. They're trying to build their cred. But the fact of the matter is that the issues, when you look at the issues that are on the table, the number one issue right now being the border, inflation is an everyday pounding on the American people and keeps them underwater in terms of their spending power and all of these things. Had a great conversation. Went to see my parents over the weekend. Had a great conversation with Dad about, the affordability or lack thereof of pretty much everything and what everything costs right now and how it's impacting everyone. You and I from the beginning have said, it's different than a recession. Not everyone is equally impacted, by a recession. And while it has a different effect on the wealthy, there still is a significant impact on the wealthy when it comes to inflation. And these are the things that are on the table that a lot of the people, I think, especially the radicals on the left, they don't care about any of that. They're not acknowledging where the actual battle is and that it's with the American people. And this will lose you. I don't know if this will be the case November 5th. I really hope it to be the case. But this has the potential of creating a catastrophic loss for the Democratic Party in November. We'll see if that actually happens.
And because it's as bad as it's ever been for liberalism in this country, and I think just the scenes from Colombia, and it hasn't ended yet. They vowed to stay forever.
Right.
Well, they did for Occupy Wall Street too, didn't they?
Yeah,
that didn't go on forever. Right. But when I was seeing my buddy Independent Bob at the party the other day, and let me do the imitation again. What's wrong with these LGBTQ people? I mean, how can they possibly be supporting people that would kill them in a second? What is wrong? He was like, and that's the thing. It's beyond even comprehension where the left has gone, and it's so to see this happening at Columbia. I guess Yale too, but especially Columbia because that was the one that really came out. And to see the president really can't do anything about it and won't do anything about it, you can tell that the sympathy lies there. And then the analysis, you think about it, the Ivy League schools, America's great educational institutions. When I saw Nate Silver come out, and I'll find it here, I'll get it in a little bit, his quote basically saying, it's symbolic. You don't get a better education at an Ivy League school. You get a worse education than you do at a regular public institution. They've lost their value. It's gone completely. Think about how liberalism has completely destroyed America's elite institutions of learning.
Yeah, it is staggering to think about all of that. But, that's, and again, therein lies the problem, is that they don't see the impact of it all. And it's not just with mainstream Americans. There are people that, again, have voted as Democrats all their life, but they don't want to be associated with that kind of radical behavior. They're to themselves thinking to themselves likely, well, my gosh, I may agree with you on a number of issues, but this radicalism is new, and I can't wrap my head around this kind of radical behavior.
Well, I would say this, though. The radicalism, they may reject some of the radicalism, but they don't reject all of the radicalism. They you may have Democrats look at it and go, okay, this anti-Semitic stuff, and it's not even anti-Semitic, this is pro-terrorism stuff, is insane, but I think we can run the grid on solar and wind. So the insanity on the issues across the board, or the border is secure and there's no problem with the border, we don't want to do anything about it. That's an insane position. So they may not all hold, all the insane opinions, but almost all Democrats right now hold one or two of those insane opinions out of the 5 or 6 that exist out there.
And reality will cure that.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
when we get to a mandate point, they're going to be stopped by a brick wall because you won't be able to power the grid on wind and solar. You won't be able to mandate that everybody drive an EV. You just won't. It won't happen in our lifetime. I won't say it won't happen ever. It won't happen in our lifetime.
Oh.
And that reality is what stifles all of that. And you see it, this is the thing. All the OEMs, oh, yeah, we're building EVs, and almost like in unison. Boom. Last year. Yeah, we got to slow down on the EVs. And now Tesla laying off 10%. And I don't think it's over with the layoffs. Maybe not at Tesla, but I think other OEMs are going to announce layoffs. You did see it from Ford earlier this year on the F-150 Lightning layoffs and the slowdown in production there. You're going to see more and more of that because of the fact of the matter is that it's just stalled. The demand, whatever demand that was there before for EVs is all but gone.
Yeah, but the unionization now of VW in the South, and the Wall Street Journal, great article. The company didn't even object to it because if the company doesn't object to it and they get the union in there, there's tons of taxpayer dollars that will be supporting the private union to build EVs that isn't going to work.
Right.
And so there you have Sean Fain celebrating over the weekend, unionization. You're getting the unionization based on the fact that the taxpayer dollars will subsidize a product that nobody wants and is too expensive for people to buy and is causing all automobiles to go up. The business model sucks, and so you sign on temporarily. Oh, yeah, we're union. What a great victory. It's not a great victory. Why? Because it's built on BS.
Well, and it's what we said. More and more, even the private sector unions are reliant on government, which makes them government unions.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Yep.
If without the government taxpayer dollars, the demand, the marketplace will dictate what people are willing to pay, what the wages would be, and everything else. It's not going to, this isn't going to solve a problem. This is a temporary win for the unions because at some point that money runs out.
And they said Volkswagen didn't protest at all.
No.
Didn't do a campaign at all to stop the union from coming in because the company wants the subsidies. They'll lose less if they approve the union because the Biden administration will give them money.
Right.
That's where private unions are today in America.
Yeah, and that's, by the way, not even close to that's not going to make Volkswagen the number one OEM in the States, not even close.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Leased owner-operators should be aware of 4 common revenue myths, lest you fall into the trap of mistaking revenue for profit. Myth 1, concentrate on increasing revenue because costs will take care of themselves. This is not true, as costs are fundamental to the profit equation and the area where owners exert the most control to improve. Myth 2, more revenue per mile is the answer to all problems. Though carrier pay packages differ in structure, revenue per mile really doesn't change much from company to company. But there can be a big difference in miles, overall gross revenue, reimbursements, and fees. Myth 3, all you have to do to be successful is run a lot of miles. In reality, revenue is only half of the profit equation. Costs are the other half. It's possible to generate a lot of revenue, yet spend $1.10 to make every dollar. Myth 4, you can tell how well you're doing by the size of your settlement check. The settlement check is only a part of the success picture. Miles driven, loads hauled, conditions, mechanical problems, time off, and especially costs all have to be considered. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics. Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. And so we hear, well, how can the stuff that's taking place on Columbia, how can all this anti-Semitism and pro-terrorism exist, pro-terrorist mindset exist? Well, we'll tell you coming up on the bottom of the hour. Plus, Pete Doocy asks Karine Jean-Pierre the question.
Yeah.
She doesn't answer it, but he asked the question. Why is President Biden saying his Uncle Bossy was eaten by cannibals? That's a quote. I heard that the other day. I burst out laughing. I knew she couldn't answer the question, and she didn't. She just simply said it was an emotional moment, and we should be focusing on the great veterans and not, well, no, you have to pay attention to the lies of a president.
Right, exactly.
So,
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
and he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. Listen when and where you want if you can't listen live overnight, as you should.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so here it is. Here's Pete Doocy asking the question on Friday, okay? Here we go. I'm sorry, but this is just the questions that we now ask the president are very interesting. Here we go.
Why is President Biden saying that his Uncle Bosie was eaten by cannibals?
I just, in my mind, over and over again, it goes back to the moment he said it, because I remembered when I saw it last week, and I thought, oh, it's going to be a bad day inside the White House, because he's saying it, and you can see his brain. He gets into that weird mode, and you can almost tell, oh, here it comes. One of those really weird lies is about to fall out right now. And I must have watched that moment probably 30 or 40 times.
Yeah, because you were analyzing everybody behind.
Everybody around him, I'm thinking, and man, I would do anything to get all those people that were there in a room and just say, okay, all right, let's play the video here. In this moment right here, what was going through your brain? And then I'm thinking, okay, now what's happening inside the halls at the White House? Because, see, if this were an episode of The West Wing, I didn't really watch The West Wing when back when it was on NBC. I didn't. I hear it was a great show. I mean, it was very successful. I hear a lot of good things about it. I don't know. I just didn't catch on with me. Mainly because Hollywood always gets it wrong when trying to portray a fictional president. And you look at the situation. I'm thinking to myself, they're walking down the hall. Come on, walk with me. Let's see if we can solve this cannibal thing. It was like. Because that was kind of the iconic thing about the West Wing. They would always be walking down a hall, and there would be a shot of where they just kept walking down. I think in the show, the number one thing that they actually accomplished was walking in the hall, and that's what the administration accomplished mostly. And it was one of those days where you think to yourself, okay, is it worth it? If you're working at the White House under Biden, you're just sitting there and you're going, what have I done? Why am I being punished? Or am I being tested? Is there a greater purpose to all of this? Because now I've got to come up with the answer as to why he just told the world that his uncle was eaten by cannibals.
All right, I'll play the whole thing over again. And originally I said there's no need to play Karine Jean-Pierre because she doesn't answer the question. But I want to be very careful and not do what the left does.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
The left says that a lot with Trump. We already know but they don't want to play Trump because they believe that he can convince people that that he has a solid argument. And this is when he was outside the courtroom the other day, and they just said, no, we're not going to cover this. We've had enough. The left does that because if they thought that Trump would hurt himself, they'd play it in a second.
Exactly. Right.
And
they're worried because even Stephen A. Smith is making some points in favor of Trump. Michael Avenatti is considering testifying in favor of Trump.
And so she doesn't answer the question. And so everybody knows she never really answers the question, but we should play that anyway so people know that, she avoids answering the question. So here it is again with Doocy asking the question.
Why is President Biden saying that his uncle Bozy was eaten by cannibals?
So, I answered this question yesterday. I believe I've seen some clips on your network about me answering this question. I don't have much to say beyond what I said to some of your colleagues. Look, I was there. I think you traveled with us too to Pennsylvania. I'm not sure if you were there at the memorial in Scranton. The president had a emotional and I think a symbolic moment. He had an opportunity as president to honor his uncle's service in uniform.
Okay, and it just goes on. I just want to lead you in there. The rest is a waste of time. I'm sorry.
She's just scrambling.
Because she never answers. And when she said, I answered the question yesterday, somebody in the White House press corps has to say, no, you didn't answer my question. You answered a question, but you did not give the answer to my question. Somebody has to say that. Why don't they say that?
Right. Where we ended it right there. He had an opportunity to honor his uncle's service, in uniform. Yeah, let me stop you right there because he had an opportunity to do it, but he didn't do that. He lied about how he died. He lied about his uncle's service. Tell me that's honoring his service. Right. It's not.
It's too easy, and it's like, come on, somebody ask the follow-up question. Go for it. But the one thing that always gets me is she's the one that first, if you do stuff like that, well, don't be rude. We need to have manners here.
Yeah.
Well, you know what is rude? When you never answer a reporter's question.
Right. Yeah.
When I ask you a direct question and you don't answer it, I'd rather have you say no comment.
Yeah. Right.
Than go through and then when you say, well, you didn't, and they've said at times that wasn't the question I asked. What I asked was this. And she goes, I answered your question already. That's when they should say, no, you didn't.
Right.
You answered, you gave an answer, but it was not to my question.
Right.
This was my question. Your answer never addressed why he said he was eaten by cannibals.
Right.
God, it gets to be so stupid, doesn't it?
No,
I can't believe I just said that.
It is just ridiculous. And we knew that they were going to, use he was honoring his uncle's service. Actually, no. He lied about his uncle's service because he lied about how he died. He deliberately did
lied,
that.
Implied he was the pilot.
Right.
He wasn't the pilot.
Right.
So it's like, why are you embellishing it?
Right.
You don't honor somebody's service by lying about what they were involved in. But
exactly.
Just amazing.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's just ludicrous that they have to come up with this stuff every day, but that's part of the service of, if you decide that you're going to accept the job and working at the Biden White House, that's part of the gig. I would I'd just love to be a fly on the wall. Just be a fly on the wall and listen to everything that the back and forth, of what they have to, because look, on the issues, they all are part of, coming up with and repeating the lies that they tell every single day. So none of us are shocked when Biden just lobs out one of these bizarre lies. The liberal media is not even shocked because early on, it was the spring of 2021. And I can't remember if it was Washington Post or New York Times, but they wrote the article, The Bizarre Set of Lies That Joe Biden Has Been Telling for Years. And this is just one more. So nobody is shocked by it, but they also can't explain it. If you're Karine Jean-Pierre, it's just one more lie in a set of lies. You know, they keep telling lies every single day. So you just kind of walk through it. You know, you're farming lies. You're walking through the field and you're growing some lies, and man, they're doing really well. Plenty of rain and nutrition in that soil, and to grow those lies big and bold and keep farming them every single day for people to consume.
I just was laughing because where we were going last week with, that as they're walking down the hallway and you've got Kirby, you got Karine Jean-Pierre, and he just looks at her and says, look, I got a deal with the pro-terrorist. And by the way, if you the pro-terrorist faction of our party, and when you see the chants that they were saying at Columbia over the weekend.
Yeah.
Al-Qassam, you make us proud. Take another soldier out. We say justice, you say how. Burn Tel Aviv to the ground. Hamas, we love you. We support your rockets too. Red, black, green, and white. We support Hamas. Fight. So when we say they're pro-Hamas, well, you guys are taking liberties. That's a quote.
Yeah. Yep. No,
we love you, Hamas.
Right.
And I can see Bob. How can the LGBTQ people? How can they be out there supporting gays for Hamas? Are you out of your freaking minds?
Well, they've got to be wearing T-shirts by now. I heart Hamas. They've got to be doing it.
Who won't wear the Hamas ribbon?
That's that's exactly what they're doing.
You're gay and you won't wear the Hamas ribbon? You've got to wear the ribbon. Wear the ribbon.
Where were they? What prominent place and event this year would the Democratic Party be sporting such a ribbon? Maybe convention in Chicago. Oh, somebody make the ribbon happen. Somebody make the ribbon happen. The lapel pro-Hamas ribbon.
Bill Maher's questioned the insanity of this and, talking about that this isn't about liberalism. How do you think this started?
Right.
How do you think this hatred starts?
Right.
It starts when you have a major political party that calls the other party racist, that practices identity politics, that judges people by groups and not individuals. That's how it starts. Identity politics, judging people by groups and not individuals, is mainstream of the Democratic Party.
Yep.
It's not an outlier. This is what they believed. They believed it for a long time. Democrats inside the Democratic Party, like Tim Ryan when he ran against Nancy Pelosi, talked about the fact that we need to stop this. We can't continue to do it. It's racism. It's blunt. The media looks at a Trump or Republican Party, they're racist. They don't even realize, you understand, you're promoting identity politics.
Yeah.
You're the ones that have done it for over 40 years.
Right. Yeah.
Judging people by groups, and it started with blacks that were conservative.
Right. Yep.
The modern identity politics movement is where it started.
Yep.
That's what identity politics is. It's racism.
Yep.
Every Democrat listening right now knows that identity politics is racist and it's practiced by the Democratic Party. And it's not just been the last couple of years. It's been going on since the 80s.
Yep.
And every Democrat listening right now knows it.
And you were building it to get to this inevitable point. And beyond, I don't even know where it goes from here.
Well, where'd you think it was going to get you?
Yeah.
This is the only logical conclusion.
Yep.
Now you're going, we have to stop the pro-terrorist wing of the Democratic Party. And, how do we stop liberal gay members of the Democratic Party? How do we stop them from supporting a group that would execute them like that?
Yeah.
It's pure insanity.
It is. And remember, you had liberal companies saying, we're not doing business with any state that's going to have a bathroom law.
Remember that?
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah,
my God.
that was the problem.
Remember that?
Yeah. And now look.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. So we'll talk more about the insanity. We'll get interesting editorial about the UAW. Here's the headline: UAW wins one for the subsidies in Chattanooga.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, and it's true. It's something that we've talked about before. That vote, Volkswagen didn't even object to it all. Why?
Right.
The subsidies, the taxpayer dollars that now go to support private unions to build a product that can't make a profit.
Yep.
This is where we are.
They're building cars and building the public union at the same time.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Welcome. Thank you for being here this morning. You know, we've asked the question before. What has happened to Tucker Carlson? And we go all the way back to when we questioned him. We got a lot of blowback on it, but when in 2020, he was one of them that recognized the exact same time we did that the lawyers of Trump were going bonkers. They were making accusations that they couldn't prove. Mm-hmm. And they were going after companies, and we said they're going to get sued for that. Tucker was the one that initially said, okay, this doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. The exact same. It was the day or the day before that they made sure they separated themselves from. Oh, I can't think of her name. What's her name now? Oh,
Sidney Powell.
Sidney Powell, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When they separated from Sidney Powell, and they really disavowed any. She never worked for us, or no, they didn't say that. They said she's never been paid by us.
Right.
But she was sitting there. She was on. You don't get on the stage with the president of the United States at that time if you're not part of the his legal team.
Right.
And so he recognized that, and then when the lawsuit came out, he was railing. He called Trump every name in the book, MFer, you name it. I mean, you think of what he threw at Trump, it was unbelievable. And then it was like a month later, oh, the election was stolen. It's like, what? Mm-hmm. It's like, wow. It's like, and you're like, where's he going? I mean, there seems to be an inconsistency there. And then he did his whole malevolent spirits, evil spirits evil supernatural forces cooperating with the federal government, and that's part of what the UFOs are. He was on Rogan again the other day saying the same thing. Then his whole thing with when he went over to Russia was absolutely an embarrassment.
Yeah, it was
absolutely
weird.
An embarrassment. It was so weird how he sucked up to Putin and Russia. Just reprehensible. I mean, he was actually like a elementary school student that went over there to do a report on Russia.
Yeah, we didn't have a problem, and we talked about it then with him or anyone sitting down with Vladimir Putin. It was just the way that the interview was conducted, and then the whole shopping trip at the grocery store.
My God, I mean, it was
weird.
It was embarrassing if you have just a cursory knowledge of what's going on in Russia today.
Right. Yeah.
But then this, when he was last on Rogan here in the last couple of days, which is just mind-boggling. And they get into talking about nuclear weapons and World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, as you said, he yada-'d
over the justification,
which is a huge justification.
It's a big deal. Right.
Here we go. This is Nutsville. He's gone off the deep end. Here we go.
Well, you could say the same about the atomic bomb, right?
Yes, you could.
And you could say that we have to develop it
Okay, we're having some problems.
like Oppenheimer felt before the Nazis did.
I love that. How'd that work?
Okay, I'm having some trouble with it here. Let me try it again, okay? Because it was playing fine before.
How'd that work?
Well,
I love, by the way, that people on my side, I'll just admit it, on the right, have spent the last 80 years defending dropping nuclear.
Okay, we have problems. I'll get it for you coming up here. But he's basically saying the United States was wrong and evil for dropping the nuclear bombs on Japan.
Right.
That if you drop bombs on civilians, that you're automatically evil.
Right.
Well, we killed a lot more with the firebombing of Tokyo.
Yeah.
Than we ever did with both of the atomic bombs.
Right.
He's just losing it, and we'll play the whole audio cut. I'll be able to clear it up here when we come back from a break here, hope in a little bit. And he completely just yadas. Oh, and the justification. This would have happened if not.
Yeah, they say that this and that and the other thing, and it's like whoa. You're not debating there. Hold on. Have the actual debate. State what many have stated about the justification for dropping the bombs.
250,000 deaths plus casualties in if you're going to do an invasion of Japan.
Right. Talk about the countless lives. And see, this is the problem, is that when you're so far removed from it in today's world, you get away with just yada, 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 but it was not right. It is the social media version of a very long, historic conversation around a globally historic event. You don't get to just, giggle your way through it and go, but it was evil, without actually having the debate. And presenting both sides and as to why you believe it was evil. You also talk in absolutes where you say it was just pure evil. Well, you can go absolute here, but you can't have the discussion and present the other side before you come up with your justification as to why it's evil. You and I have been doing this a long time. And I see a social media type argument or debate or lack thereof, and I know it immediately. I sense it. Because those who are going to be thoughtful in their approach about a discussion on this or anything else, they're going to say this is what people have said about justifying it. But I disagree, and here's why.
Well, they make the case that if the Nazis did it to us, that it would been a war crime. What you're forgetting is the context of who started the war.
Right.
Who the aggressor was.
And what the enemy was capable of doing, right, and what they were doing.
And if being the aggressor doesn't mean anything.
Right.
Well, of course it means a ton of things.
Well, yeah. Absolutely. You know, I mean, we were drawn into that war after Pearl Harbor, and think about what the public sentiment was leading up to that point. America didn't want to be a part of the war.
No.
Until Pearl Harbor. And that's the part of the, just taking this big bucket of paint and whitewashing that whole thing and saying, oh, that was bad, that was evil. I'm sure it was horrific.
Okay, I've got the whole thing now. I think I got it cleared up.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
All right.
Ready? Okay.
All right.
Well, you could say the same about the atomic bomb, right?
Yes, you could.
And you could say that we have to develop it like Oppenheimer felt before the Nazis did.
I love that. How'd that work?
By the way, it worked.
It worked as intended.
I mean, he sounds like a babbling idiot there. Well, it actually worked.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Work.
Well,
I love, by the way, that people on my side, I'll just admit it, on the right, have spent the last 80 years defending dropping nuclear weapons on civilians. Like, are you joking?
Right.
That's just like prima facie evil.
Yeah.
If you can't, if we hadn't done that, then this, that, the other thing, that was actually a great savings. Like, no, it's wrong to drop nuclear weapons on people. And if you find yourself arguing that it's a good thing to drop nuclear weapons on people, then you are evil.
I didn't hear anyone ever say, hey, it was a good thing. It was the choice that had to be made, a very difficult choice at wartime. It was a tactical decision. People celebrating that it was done, I've never heard that, and that's what he's implying.
Also, when he says, people on the right, my side, you're not conservative if you attempt to have a moral equivalency between the Nazis and the United States at that time and also Japan.
Right.
If you're attempting a moral equivalency, Tucker Carlson, that's liberalism.
Right.
Liberalism does moral equivalencies that don't hold any water.
Because what you're saying ultimately is that you disagree with war of any kind, because what you're saying is then because there will always be civilian casualties in war. It's unavoidable. There will always be civilian casualties. And so by this measure and by this standard, then you would say, I don't believe, and you would have to say that out loud. That's what you're telling me, is you believe war is never justified.
Well, I mean, he's talking about the fact that we targeted cities with the atomic bomb and you hit civilians, but the firebombing both of Germany and also of Japan did target the cities and civilians. It targeted everything.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And so it wasn't like what is expected of Israel today whatsoever. It was when you think of how many, it was 100 million people that were killed.
Mm-hmm.
And so you look at, we needed to end the war as quickly as possible. And you people that in Germany and people in Japan also are part of the labor force that was needed in order to produce everything. And they needed to, in Germany and especially in Japan, they knew that if we did an invasion, that how many, you can talk about whether the estimate would be 100,000 killed or 500,000 killed,
mm-hmm.
but they knew it was going to be bloody and long. And it got to the point of them or us. And in war, and it's viewed as justifiable in war, especially when you're not the aggressor.
Right.
To end the war.
Right.
And that's what it did. And Tucker Carlson is a babbling idiot. And he's become one, a complete babbling idiot.
Yeah.
And then when he just sort of laughs, well, what if, and then they get into the thing, well, what if the Nazis did it to us? Well, that's a moral equivalency that you can't. He's throwing in that moral equivalency as if it's the same damn thing.
Right. We didn't have an Auschwitz.
Are they doing acid now on Rogan? Is that what they're doing? I mean, have they gone beyond? Are they doing shrooms now?
I don't understand the lack of debate. I don't understand the lack of presentation. If you're going to call yourself a conservative, you present both sides. Here's why people believe it was justified. Here's why I disagree. When you laugh it away, it tells me you've got nothing.
Yeah. Laughs away as if it's ridiculous. Because what if Germany did it to us?
Right.
We can't. You're trying to put a moral equivalency between the Nazis and the Empire of Japan and the United States at that time.
Again, what you're telling me is that no war is justified.
Yeah.
That's what you're telling me. And that nobody is a winner in war, and that there is, that we're all on that same equal moral plane, and we are not.
Well, and the other thing is, too, they say, when they try to make with the Nazis, what do you think the Nazis were doing with the bombing of England?
Right.
They were targeting civilians on a consistent basis.
Right.
They were targeting cities. They were targeting infrastructure. They were trying to destroy anything that might help with, with the production of bombs, which is or the production of weapons, which is civilians.
Right.
But the Nazis were doing it. The Japanese would wipe out civilian populations. The Germany committed a genocide, killed 6 million Jews.
Yeah.
What the hell is wrong with him?
I don't know. I really don't.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Yeah, Rogan really didn't challenge him a lot, did he?
No. It's because, the tactic is to move so quickly through it and then kind of laugh certain parts of it away in almost this kind of gaslighting approach. You have to be ridiculous to disagree with me. That's not how debates like that, especially on topics like that, are done. It tells me that you lack confidence in your own position, that you're going to be challenged, and so you build that wall to keep that challenge at bay. You don't care to have the debate. You're just going to make your point.
What got me from Tucker Carlson was the sense of moral equivalency, as if, the Nazis and Japan were on the same moral level as the United States and the Allies.
Right.
When obviously, anyone who has studied history knows that what Hitler wanted to do and what the Empire of Japan wanted to do.
Right.
Was expand by force.
Right.
And to take that as a moral equivalency of what was going on at the United States at that time, and you brought it up that was a war that no Americans didn't want to get into.
Right.
In fact, there's I'll never forget, and it was pretty big back then, about how quickly America changed, and that the United States really was quite isolationist. We didn't want to get involved.
Right.
And FDR knew, the Lend-Lease program was, the interesting lend-lease, sort of what Trump was talking about with Ukraine last week. We need to support Ukraine, but we can't give them everything. Make it a loan. Mm-hmm. But the fact is, you're still giving them aid, and FDR, from all the history books, believed we would enter that war. And you think about it today. You think about today, if our allies were involved in that kind of war, we would have been involved in a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a reason that those alliances were built, and that's to stop anyone from, ever doing that again, being able to expand that quickly.
Right. Yeah.
And so, but Carlson, to make the moral equivalency between, but the polling, I remember the polling that was a couple of things on the History Channel talked about the polling that 90 to 95% of Americans did not want to get involved in that war.
Right.
And it was like right after World War II, I mean, it changed completely.
Yeah,
So
right at Pearl Harbor,
right.
yeah.
Pearl Harbor was attacked, you're attacked, boom, you get involved in it.
Right.
And so that's what gets me the most, because that's what shows to me no concept of proportionality.
Well, it's and time tends to wash away a lot of the facts, and it's been a great deal of time. None of us were around, in terms of Tucker Carlson or anyone, as a part of this discussion, weren't around during World War II, so they don't understand. They don't remember firsthand. It's almost like 9/11, right? After 9/11, in the days following 9/11, there were people in the streets. Remember, I'll never forget it. The people in Times Square that were just screaming, "We got to go get them. We got to go get them. We got to go get them." And then in October 2001, we go into Afghanistan. Then we go in the spring of 2003, we go into Iraq. And things started to, it wasn't that long. It was a few years, and people were saying, okay, yeah, well, maybe we don't do this. But time tends to fade our memories, I guess.
Have a line open. 1-866-90-RED-EYE. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Again, you and I were talking about the whole Tucker Carlson thing, talking about the United States dropping bombs on Japan in World War II was evil, and trying to make a moral equivalency and completely keeping out all context. In fact, just laughing over the context of it. The other thing that people don't realize, if you were there at the time, the shock. You think about Okinawa when the kamikaze pilots really started coming out. Thousands of kamikaze pilots hitting ships. That terrified the United States at that point. And they went, to go into a war, to have an invasion of Japan was just unacceptable at that point, with the loss of life that the Allies saw, not just the United States, but the Allies. Mm-hmm. What Russia saw. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What did they lose? 60 million?
Yeah, right.
60 million people. For Tucker not to know that, and you said the problem is when he calls himself a conservative, but doesn't actually, bring up the pros and the cons of it.
I told you during the break, I don't need him to agree. I do need him to present the debate it really is doable even in the podcast sense. In fact, I'd say on Rogan, you've got as much time as you want to present both sides. And you need to explain to me also why. Just saying it's evil and then giggling like a 13-year-old girl doesn't get it there for me. That's not, I don't see that as a conservative. I don't see him as a conservative. I don't. He may agree with some things on the right, but sorry, you can't make the case to me. You're never going to convince me you're a conservative with the lack of debate skills like that. You're just not.
You think about this. I mentioned about Okinawa because that's when, you go back in the history books and you look at it when the kamikaze pilots started hitting and they were coming wave after wave after wave. Remember, one island. Think about this. 12,000 American soldiers lost taking one island.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You think about and by the way, America was furious. That's also lost. Right. That's also lost in the context of history.
Right.
But we live right now where if we lose 5 American soldiers, we've had enough.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We live in a society that we expect now technology which didn't exist, at all, like it does now.
Right.
When it comes to
that's the other thing I was telling you during the break is that, in the point I was making is that with today's technology, and the precision targeting capability when it comes to fighting the enemy, you have this armchair quarterback 20/20 vision. And it's that technology that's built it out, and I'm grateful for that technology. I'm grateful that we can seek out an enemy and destroy an enemy, seek out those responsible, and take them out. The killing of Soleimani was critical. The killing of Soleimani, while it didn't bring Iran to their knees, and if it did, Joe Biden helped them stand back up again, it certainly stifled them, and it was critical to take out someone who was responsible for targeting countless Americans and free people all over the world. But to make this debate, it honestly sounded like a teenager, is what it sounded like. You sound immature and you sound very uneducated. You sound stupid. And I don't believe he's a stupid guy, but I do wonder where his brain is.
The Normandy invasion, for example, and this is not just on D-Day, but the entire Normandy invasion, the United States, 29,000 killed, 106,000 wounded or missing. People forget about that. They forget about the deaths were daily, and you had thousands. By the time we were taking the islands of Japan, you had at times, thousands of Americans being killed every single week.
Yeah.
And the United States was ticked off about that. I mean, there were questions about why are we doing it this way? Going from how important are these islands? What is the strategy, the military strategy behind this? Is it worth losing this many when you could see that the end of the war could be in the distant, distant future, that somewhere it could be there. And even when we dropped the atomic bomb, we knew we would eventually win the war, but in order to win the war, we would have to invade and go in, and they knew the cult-like status of the Japanese people with the emperor, which is why, because you'll hear people say, well, Japan was only to do a conditional. Nope, it was no conditions. In that case, there's no conditions.
Right.
It's just, and people don't realize, they have no idea. And for Tucker Carlson to be so willfully ignorant, because that's what it is.
Yeah.
He's willfully ignorant, and he's trying to throw some, and for him to sit there and say, conservatives and people on the right like me, you're no conservative if you attempt to put a moral equivalency between Nazi Germany, the Empire of Japan, and the United States. And what the thought process was of the United States in 1939 and in 1940 compared to what was going on, the mentality of Japan and the Empire, Japan and Nazi Germany.
Right.
To sit there and say that there was some type of, make the case that there was a moral equivalency is so absolutely reprehensible and evil, and it's part of what the the anti-American left is doing, and that's what Tucker Carlson is becoming a part of.
Well, and again, this idea that's being implied here that it's being celebrated, that it was a good thing, it was a necessary thing, it was the right thing. It was about ending a war that was about to change the world forever in a way where liberty and freedom would have been gone forever. There's no way around that. And I don't know anybody who's celebrating it and gleeful. And that's what's being implied here. It is bringing it down to such a simplistic level that it sounds childish.
Okinawa, for example, 49,000 American casualties, 12,000 deaths. 90,000 Japanese combatants died. Just in Okinawa alone, civilian deaths, 150,000. Mm-hmm. Couldn't be helped.
Right.
They sat there. How long did they sit there and use artillery on Okinawa for? It was weeks before we finally invaded. Mm-hmm. But all that happening there and the brutality of the war that Americans saw. And knowing, the kamikazes, you cannot discount what the kamikaze pilots did to the mentality of the United States and our allies.
Well, the survivors of Pearl Harbor, when they talked about being able to see the faces of the Japanese pilots,
right,
and the looks on their faces, and they had never experienced anything like that, and you think about then the kamikaze approach, that had never been seen on that level.
Right. Well, the kamikaze again approach gave that was that went into the mindset of we need to drop the atomic bombs,
right?
Because the civilian population, if there's this cult-like status where these people will commit suicide, then going door to door to take over Japan will cost us hundreds of thousands of casualties, and we're not going to do it,
right?
Because that's what the fear was. If you can get this many people to agree to die and commit suicide, how many will be suicide bombers? What can you expect when you go into the civilian population? We're not taking that gamble.
Right.
War eventually comes to killing more of them than you.
Yes.
And that's what the decision was about.
And breaking ultimately long-term and hopefully permanently the will of your enemy.
But Tucker Carlson, to have the moral equivalency that us doing it would be just like the Nazis doing it, is so far out of the realm of any type of morality or any type of conservative mindset. I mean, he's embarrassing himself consistently. And then they get into the whole malevolent forces, and he was giving his ideas about that and the supernatural forces that exist that are in
and seemingly making up facts, to justify it and all of that. That part is just weird.
It's just completely weird.
I don't get it at all.
Well, I've noticed that he's hurt himself because I don't see. I knew a bunch of people that I knew were always talking about Tucker.
The fall off of the conservative following, his conservative base, has been significant.
But right now, after saying that on Rogan, he is no better than any anti-American on the left.
Right.
And you picked up on that right away because that's the one thing you told me as soon as the first thing that came out of your mouth. Look how he's laughing over the justification of doing it.
It's just yada right through it. And whoa, break it down. Talk about what the justification has been stated and why, and get into the details.
Yeah.
And then debate it.
Were they wrong?
Right.
Well, then how many casualties should the United States have been willing to take instead of using the atomic bomb?
That's where you lose the
10,000?
credibility. If you want to
20,000?
disagree, but show me how you got there and present both sides.
200?
Otherwise, you're being a child.
250,000?
Right.
What was the acceptable casualty?
Right.
Would we have walked in and then if he's trying to make the case that if we walked in there would have been no American casualties, that we would have been welcome into Japan?
Was it unjustified that we won the war at all by any means?
If you're trying to make the moral equivalency that there's no difference between Nazi Germany and Japan, because that's what you're doing, he'd say, well, I'm not trying to make the moral equivalency. I'm just saying bombing civilians in any case is wrong. Well, no, it's not.
No, it isn't. It isn't. It reeks of this whole equity in war that the left is doing right now with Hamas and Israel.
Tucker Carlson's DEI in wartime.
It would be wrong if they did it to us. We wouldn't like it. You're damn right. That's why we won.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Welcome. All right. What went on at Columbia? We'll get to that. What is this here? Alan gave me this one about, some Democrats ditching the progressive brand. They don't want to call themselves progressives anymore.
Oh.
Remember when it was we're not liberals, we're progressive?
Yeah.
Where do you go from progressive?
Right. Lean forward? Oh, no, wait. They tried that at MSNBC. Lean forward.
Major offshore wind projects in New York canceled in latest blow to the industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We covered the Michael Avenatti story, even though that was like it's
just weird. Michael Avenatti, and who was it? Was it MSNBC that had him on live from prison?
Yes,
and he then handed them an answer that they really weren't looking for, that, he just thought this was over the top. Basically, all these charges against Trump were over the top. And keep in mind, MSNBC was part of they were about to crown him the king of the Democratic Party. They were pushing him to run, and the whole thing, he was the savior of the party. We played you the audio cut, the montage of all this praise that the liberals just poured over him for the longest time when he talked against Trump. And now he's not talking against Trump. And over the weekend, the story came out that he's been in talks with the Trump defense team
to testify in favor of Trump.
So I look at that and go, all right. Everybody's smoking weed. Look, I'm not going to start smoking weed so I can understand them. But I do have some questions. I do have some questions for them.
We just need to understand. Smoke this.
Yeah, exactly.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thanks for being here. I'm sorry, I'm just dying laughing about the response to Taylor Swift's new album. And the first off, there was the album was coming out, then CBS did a whole thing on these kids in college taking a course on Taylor Swift. I'm telling you, I've never seen a bigger bunch of losers in my life. Talking about how the course on Taylor Swift will help them in the business world. It's like, you're out of your freaking mind. I mean, and then the reviews from the worst piece of crap ever done to inspiring and
it's remember the whole thing on American Bandstand, the whole what they call it, the Raider record thing or whatever, and Dick Clark would, they'd play a song and then they'd come back and they'd have this couple there, just a random couple, and it's the go-to answer was, it's easy to dance to. That's as much thought as we put into it back then. I like it. It's easy to dance to. They come back. They tried that, by the way, with a song called "Seasons in the Sun" by Terry Jackson. They come back, both in the people in the randomly selected couple were crying. Oh, was it that sad? No, it was just an awful song. It was really hard to dance to. And now we get to the point of, I don't know. If you're, because see, the critics, whether it's music or movies, they basically will put out their assessment, their opinion of the movie or the song or the album, the collection of music, and then kind of, they have this air of self-importance. And I've never, not once, run into someone that has said, look, I know we were going to go to the movies to see that new movie, but, the critics said I shouldn't see it. So, it's, I do see people that say, oh, all the critics love it. But what's really become the measure? The measurement has been things like Rotten Tomatoes of, the fans, whether the fans like it or not. Because I look at it and go, okay, all right, how much money did it make? Like the Barbie movie. It made like $4 trillion. It's on its way to making enough money to pay off the national debt. I may be off by a couple of zeros, but it was like, all right, no, I get it. I know what the trends in movies are. Does that mean I'm going to like the movie?
No.
No. Does it mean I'm going to hate the movie? No. Because I've, on movie night, my wife and I have, it's usually maybe once a month these days, maybe on the weekend. All right, let's see if we can find a movie, I think the last one that we watched. Oh, no, actually, the last one was Anthony Hopkins. It was an Anthony Hopkins movie. And I'll come up with a name in a minute. It was just this past weekend. And we look at it and go, okay, let's watch the trailer. It's like, okay. It may look like a good movie. Then we'll go, yeah, but I'm still, maybe tonight's not the right night for a war movie. Maybe we watch a comedy or watch something else, so it depends on the mood. But this idea of these critics, just imagine having to write a piece on you're working for whoever, or you're freelance. When you're freelance, you're vying for everyone to pick up your piece on that, right? You've got to get out there and prove your worth over and over again. And having to write it about a Taylor Swift album. Look, Taylor Swift has her fans, like billions of them, apparently. I'm not one of them. I don't get it, but I'm not supposed to be. Yeah. And, this idea of wording together, like critics do, a piece on the album. I honestly can't imagine a greater torture.
I forgot who had it, but Barbie was, for free without commercials on one of my channels. And I said, okay, let me see if I can get through a few minutes of it, maybe 3-4 minutes. And the only reason that really kept me interested was I've seen the studies that have said that a dog or a cat can have the intelligence of maybe a 2-year-old child.
Yeah, right.
And so, just for the fun of it, my cat loves watching certain type of TV programs, animated programs that have animated animals or even human beings that talk in high voices that are meant for children under the age of 5. She's extremely attracted to. And when Barbie came on, she jumped right up and was watching the Barbie for 3 or 4 minutes of Barbie, looking around, and she just stares at the TV. And just so you know, when I wake up, most mornings when I wake up, I'll make coffee, whatever, and my cat will be sitting on the coffee table, looking straight at the TV, waiting for me to turn it on. Now, the good thing is, at times in the morning when I wake up, I think if I wake up between 10 and 11, because I go to sleep after the show's over, she loves Alf.
Which, ironically, is...
Right. The furry animal running around.
Yeah, is
the alien.
kind of weird because of his, taste for cats.
Exactly. If she does it, I didn't tell her. I didn't tell her that.
Don't break the news to her.
No. I don't think that it was the one where he was trying to make a cat sandwich. Or a cat sub,
right,
I think it was. He had a big submarine roll.
Yeah.
And tried to put the cat in there. Yeah, that's interesting. A lot of people have noticed that because I did put that, I think, on social media when she was watching Alf one day, when she's watching Alf, and someone said, yeah, but Alf eats cats, Gary. It's like, oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's as far as I got. And 3 to 4 minutes, I went, this is who would spend any more time watching it? Just had no interest to me at all.
Right. The movie we watched over the weekend was One Life, which is the story of Nicholas Winston. He was the British stockbroker who in 1939 helped to arrange the escape of 669 Jewish children from Czechoslovakia. And right before the Nazis moved in. And I remember the British TV show where he was in the audience.
Oh,
and then they said, if anyone here, because they introduced him to one survivor and said, if anyone else here has been affected by him, please stand up. And it was the entire audience. And I remember that happening.
I just got goosebumps on that one. That just,
it was
that's
incredible story.
Like,
And I told my wife, I said, it's one of those stories that's hard to pare down to, roughly 2 hours, less than 2 hours, whatever. I don't know the length of the movie. I mean, we did watch it, but I didn't pay attention to that part of it, how long it was. But it's hard to leave out so many details, of how that was done, and it was arranged in such a short period of time, and how they were able to pull that off. And but it's an incredible story. But we consume the entertainment, and in the case of your cat, ignorance is bliss when it comes to Alf.
Wow. I can just see Bob. Why is your cat watching that? Alf would kill your cat.
Right.
If Alf, just like he was screaming about the LGBTQ, how can they possibly be supporting Hamas?
Right.
They would they'd kill him and they'd execute him.
Right.
And he was just screaming like, I just can't. And there's an intensity in Independent Bob's face when he was saying it. And I'm like, wow. Oh.
Well, what's interesting is when I was looking up this movie that we watched over the weekend, I was looking and I couldn't remember the name again. It's One Life, and Anthony Hopkins plays Nicholas Winton. He went by Nicky Winton, and the LA Times had a piece on it back in March of this year, and I just had to check because there was a word that was missing from this article as I'm browsing through this article. and only one time did the word Jewish appear.
Ooh.
And it was because the line that was operative in my search, it reads, "One life is the true story of Nicholas Winton, a British stockbroker and humanitarian who in 1939 helped to arrange the escape of 669 children from Czechoslovakia." And the word that's missing there is Jewish children. Now, to be fair and accurate here, review, and it's written by Katie Walsh, review, in One Life, a Holocaust hero's story gets the modest treatment he would have preferred. And then, but that line came up in my search, and it's highlighted in this article as I read it, and then I had to search for the word Jewish, and it appears exactly one time in the entire story. And it's March of 2024, and I'm again wondering, well, did they feel like they couldn't include that operative word in today's world because of the radicals? I'm just asking a question.
Well, I guess
I don't know that to be the case, but it was notably gone in describing the children, and essentially it's imperative if you know that. And I also, because I wondered this while watching it. I didn't want to bring up a political talk show to my lovely bride while I'm watching it, but I wondered silently in my tiny brain how well this movie is received, certainly by the radical pro-Hamas group. I'm guessing they don't care. It's an important, very important story. I remember the whole thing with Nicky Winton and the TV show and the story behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just, it just had you. And Saturday when we watched it, Friday night when we watched it, it just has you in tears. Because he spent his life wondering what happened to these children. Because he brought them, to safety, and they found foster homes for them. And then the question was, okay, what happened to them? What happened to their families that were left behind? That couldn't get everyone out, but at least they could tell those families, we will get your children to safety. So he spent his entire life, obsessed with that. What happened? Where are they now? Was my work in vain? And all of that. And then he learns that.
Yeah, well, because that would haunt all of us.
Yes. Well, that's the beginning of the movie. It starts with that because his archives he kept in his home, and they were piled up everywhere. And his wife seemed to be frustrated because she saw his frustration of never getting that answer, never being able to find out. And he just, went over those archives over and over again and through those documents over and over again. And it was a bit of torture for him in that he didn't have that answer and then was able to learn.
I want to see the movie. I'll watch it.
Yeah.
I think I'll enjoy it more than Barbie.
I think so. I think it's more important.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on compliance, safety, accountability. Compliance, Safety, Accountability, or CSA, is the FMCSA Safety, Compliance, and Enforcement Program. Its goal is to hold motor carriers and drivers accountable for highway safety and to reduce crashes, injuries, and fatalities on our roads. CSA does this by assessing the safety performance of motor carriers and drivers based on data collected during roadside inspections, crash reports, and FMCSA investigations. Based on the data that is compiled, motor carriers are assigned a score. The carrier is then grouped with other carriers who have had a similar number of safety events. Carrier scores within the group are then ranked to determine intervention priority. Low scores are better, so carriers with the highest scores are those that are most likely to be targeted for intervention by the FMCSA. Interventions range in severity and may include warning letters, roadside, off-site, or on-site inspections, civil penalties, or operation out-of-service orders. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
If you like listening to Red Eye On Demand, we have more of Eric Harley and guests for you. Download RER's Extra Mile podcast. More topics and issues discussed.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You know, looking at what's going on in Columbia right now. I just saw this from Nate Silver yesterday, just talking about the Ivy League schools, and we know the rot that exists in there, and you and I have said it many times before. You can get just as great of an education at any public school. You'll get a better education at many public schools than you'll ever get at any Ivy League school. The rot and the stink in there is just, you know, you see it right now. You see it going on in Columbia. You know, when the Harvard president was testifying, remember that, before Congress.
Right.
We know the stink and the rot and the hate and the propaganda and the lies that are being taught at these colleges. You're paying an extreme amount of money to get basically far left-wing, communist, Marxist, totalitarian, racist ideas at the Ivy League schools. What the hell are they teaching you?
Right.
When do they have time to teach anything if that's what's going on? And if that's the basis, I don't care what you learn, you're not prepared for society. And he writes here, just go to a state school. This is Nate Silver. He's not a conservative.
Right.
The premium you're paying for elite private colleges versus the better public schools is for social clout and not the quality of the education. And that's worth a lot less now that people have figured out that elite higher ed education is cringe. And that's true.
Well, that's it, because, you know, the marketplace, I'm convinced, is judging it differently, and I think that will continue to be the case, because any employer will want to know what that person is bringing. And it starts with critical thinking skills. It starts with, and I think it always has, but now you have to wonder if that potential hire that you're looking at, sitting across from, is going to bring in any of their radical views and try and implement or, work to implement any of those radical ideas within the culture of your business. And that's something you just simply can't afford. You can't. It comes down to productivity. You know, if you're going to be a DEI company, then by all means. But quite frankly, that's not a long-term business plan, because it seems to be dying more and more.
But how stupid were the companies to go down that path? A lot of that was created at these institutions for higher learning.
Yep, and just like with Black Lives Matter and everything else, they realize more and more now maybe we shouldn't have.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Okay, some other stories out there. I found this one really interesting. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass's strategy to employ wealthy residents to help fund housing for the homeless is garnering support from local business leaders who say it might be the only solution to effectively tackle the growing crisis. Well, I would assume they would probably say if it's between the rich paying for homes for the homeless or an increase in taxes that would hit businesses, I would think they would probably think that'd be a good idea.
Yeah.
My question would be, since you cannot find any rich person who screams that the rich need to pay their fair share, yet will not voluntarily pay more, why would they step up here instead of insisting that tax dollars take care of it?
Right.
So the business leaders say, well, this would be great. The mayor says it'd be great. Well, what about the people that you're asking to buy homes?
Right.
Have they responded?
Right.
Enthusiastically.
Well, you can get every non-responsible party in on the equation and say, what do you think? Oh, it's a great idea. Now talk to those who carry the responsibility.
Well, I think they ought to go a step further, and it should be the rich elite in California to fund reparations.
Yes. Starting with Hollywood.
Because now that they have decided not to give out any cash reparations, they're putting together the panel to show who should get reparations that they're not going to give.
You know who they should go to, and then they're the perfect organization. Hollywood for Reparations.
Yeah.
You know that group that they formed, when all this came about? Oh, wait, that never happened. Hollywood never, that's the one thing missing from that entire equation. They went silent quick. Oh, sorry, we were on strike. You didn't see that at all. Hey, any of you rich Hollywood folks want to jump on board here? No, I'm sorry, we're on strike. We're not taking questions. Hey, we're all in it. The rich are going to pay. Ready? Go. And the rich are like, I'm sorry. What?
I just find it fascinating because they can't find anybody who comes out and says it. And it was Cuban. Yeah, it was Cuban last week. It was Mark Cuban last week. By the way, I did just looking at the paper, the playoff game, they got annihilated yesterday. And he doesn't look happy. There shows a picture of him.
Yeah.
But when he was asked whether he would pay more taxes, no, I'll pay what I owe.
Right.
But the rich don't pay their fair share. And
right.
My favorite part of it, though, was the slam dunk that we had on that one where he wants to see an increase in corporate taxes. So Mark Cuban wishes to tax the poor.
Right.
Because they get hurt the most. It's a stealth tax that hurts the poor the most.
Yep.
Corporate taxes. So he played right into that liberal game of I'm rich, let's tax the poor.
Well, and here's the thing. At this big old buffet, nobody wants to be the first at the buffet, right, with their plate. If you're rich, you don't want to say, well, you know what? I think this idea of housing the homeless is right. So I'm gonna donate one. I'm just thinking in California, I'm going to start with a donation of $1 million. $1 million. You're going to build a 60 square foot home in California? Is that what you want? Is that what you're trying to? No, they have that. They live in refrigerator boxes on the street. They have homes that size. They need something bigger, with indoor plumbing. Well, because the thing would be is that if you had one of these liberal millionaires, billionaires that jumped in, the problem with that is nobody wants to be the first up there because then they're going to be called on to go get all your other friends and bring them to the table and tell them they've got to do it too. Fact of the matter is that, after the story, this is on the heels of California spending, $24 billion?
Yeah.
And not having any accounting for that spending whatsoever. It's so easy to say when it's somebody else's money. It's so easy to spend when it's somebody else's money. Oh, I think that's a great idea. You want to chip in? No.
Well, that's because, as we know, because it's human nature, the pathology of dependency does not solve the problem.
No, they know what's right. Well, look, it comes down to the old a question that's been going on in the modern years. since I can remember. Well, how do you fix this problem? I can't tell you how to fix it, but I can tell you this. If you're going to spend $24 billion, every step of the way, there should be oversight as to how that money's being used and how well that money is being used and how effective it is.
And I talked about this charity that I know and I participate in that is a, I guess they're under the umbrella of a homeless place, homeless shelter, but what they actually are known for. And they'll feed you, but if you wish to stay there, you have to be willing. Your whole goal in life must be to become self-sufficient. And if it is, and you prove yourself to them, they will do almost anything you possibly can to make sure you get back on your feet and become productive. Because that's what it's about. It's about, the goal has to be. And, and this is, he talked to Michael Schellenberger about this because he looked at homelessness.
Oh, yeah. And
he's been involved in that. And he goes, this, what's basically, he didn't say it this way, but the pathology of dependency to just say, give them a home and food and access to drugs.
Right.
And that way they'll be better, doesn't solve the problem.
No.
And so the goal cannot be, to give homes to the homeless and food to the hungry. It has to be, you may be doing that, but it's in the course of making them a productive human being out there with somebody with goals who wishes to have a life. A sedentary life of being a drug addict and someone paying for your home and someone paying for your medical bills and someone paying doesn't make you a better human being. In fact, it makes you most of the time a worse human being.
Well, because, you start with the mental health crisis and say, all right, what's at the basis of where this person is and why they're there, why they're there in the physical location of where they are, but also in the mental state that they are. And each one of those, every single individual that's involved has a different set of concerns that have to be addressed. And none of that is easy. For doing it for one person would be a monumental achievement. So when you talk about this, oversimplified approach, how long has it been? I mean, it's been since I can remember that you have had faith-based shelters and organizations that look to help the homeless. It's been going on for a long time. And the very blunt reality of it all is that the person has to desire to get out of that situation in that they have to be amenable to whatever the standards are. You mentioned the standard for the nonprofit that you support. There is a standard that must be met, and there is what you have to meet. The individual has to agree to that standard. So they have to want to get out of their situation and to a better place to the extent that they agree to such a standard. And, because it's sometimes the debate is, well, they don't want to, they don't want to do, anything to I don't think they want to be where they are, but they don't want to agree to those standards that are there. Now, again, with every individual, it's for a different reason. And I'm not claiming to know why that is or what the answer is, but I'm trying to spell out what the very complex situation is, and that if you're going to spend money, it's no doubt a worthy cause. But if you're going to spend the money, it's going to have to be micromanaged because every single case is going to be different.
Is different
and
right.
has different needs.
Right. And again, it doesn't solve the charity that I give to does not solve all the problems.
Right,
Homelessness
right,
on the street.
right.
But what it does do is give people the opportunity to go, all right, you wish to change your life? You really do? There is a route to do that.
Right.
And there are people willing to help you do that all along the line to provide everything that you need to get to that particular point.
Right.
And when you see those success stories, whether they were a drug addict, whether they were a single mother or whatever, and you see them become self-sufficient or on their way, when they see the light that they can do it on their own, that it's going to be there. And there will be people to help them get there. But the fact is, if you go in the right direction, if you're attempting to do it, there is help for you. It's wonderful to see the looks on their faces. And it's wonderful to hear their stories about how they do it. And, you hear the stories of people that just have begun, people that are halfway through the program, and people that are successfully all the way through it. But that's something that the management wants the donors to know about.
Well, and that's it, because you look in a situation, you're trying to, again, be as effective as you can be as an organization. The philanthropists, most often these days, want to make sure that their donations are going to go as far as possible to the intended purpose, and that's why many of them will insist on being on the board of directors, or certainly being involved on a regular basis, getting that kind of feedback and being aware of how that money is being spent. You talk about the Chris Gardner story and The Pursuit of Happiness, the movie with Will Smith, and that vulnerable feeling. The scene that sticks out in my mind is the bathroom scene, locking that door in that bathroom. And then someone is pounding on it from the outside, and he's trying to protect his son, and they're using that bathroom for a shelter. And I can't imagine that horrifying, such a vulnerable feeling, and it being just horrific. I lived in my car for 4 months. I never still don't consider myself to have been homeless. I had a home. It was a 75 Dodge Dart, and I made the choices to be there. I was working. I was saving money. And I was in a good place. I won't say they were fond memories, but I wouldn't change what I did for anything. And it was a very valuable lesson, because I knew one day if I wanted to have a family, then I was going to have to do anything and everything. And sometimes that meant, most often, things you don't want to do to protect your family. But some people, you fall and something happens unexpectedly, and you can't prevent that, and you're in a case like Chris Gardner, and he said, I was out to learn everything I could learn to get to where I needed to be successful, to make sure this was never going to be the case again.
When he walks out of the office, when Will Smith, yeah, right, yeah, when he walks out of that office, and the look on his face when he gets the job,
yeah, right.
And he walks out of that office.
Yeah.
That feeling. I've been there.
Yeah, sure.
When you just can't believe that you actually worked to a point and got something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great movie.
Achievement.
Yeah, and true.
Mm-hmm.
866-90-RED-I.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-I.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thank you so much for being here this morning. The insanity at Columbia, we'll get to more of that coming up here. Here is an interesting one. We've talked about this before. In order to save the planet, how would it affect the economy? New projections out there. Remember that the United Nations said a 13% reduction in current GDP by 2100.
Yeah.
We said, well, if you do that, you're going to millions of people starving to death. That's your solution. So
Right.
we'll see. There's some new figures out there coming up.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.